Hi there, Nissan owners. Today in your 2016 Nissan Rogue, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Curt's 4-pole flat trailer connector vehicle wiring harness. And this is what our 4-pole wiring looks like when it's installed. This is designed to stay inside the vehicle when you're not using it, and it's designed that way to protect it. The 4-pole ends that are located outside the vehicle are often susceptible to corrosion from all the elements out there. So by keeping it here inside the vehicle, you're going to have a longer use out of your 4-pole. When you're ready to use it, it simply hangs out the back here. We can drape it out the back, and it'll pinch between our weather stripping. Now you do want to make sure you avoid the striker in the middle, as that will damage the wiring, but as long as you're on the weather stripping here, it'll be just fine. Go ahead and close up our lift gate there, and you'll see it cinch it down. And we've now got our 4-pole connector out here ready to use. When you're ready to use it, you simply just plug it into your trailer, and you're going to get all your necessary lighting signals out of your 4-pole connector. This includes your left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps, and brake lamps, which will keep you DOT compliant in all states. What I like about this harness is that it has its own module that will monitor the lighting signals from your vehicle, both the passenger and driver side signals, and then the module reproduces those signals and sends it out our 4-pole flat connector. What's nice about that is if there's any shorts that's detected here on our connector, the module can shut that circuit down. And in the event that it's unable to shut the circuit down in time, it has its own dedicated power circuit with an inline fuse, so the fuse would simply open for our module, which would leave our vehicle completely fine. Nothing would affect our vehicle. We just wouldn't have our 4-pole function. We can then fix our trailer, whatever was causing the short, replace the fuse, and we're back up and running again without anything ever affecting the vehicle here. You can also use your dust boot here if you're running around from place to place, and instead of throwing it in the back, if you got a bunch of little loads you need to drop off, got little trailers to move around, you can also store it right here on the back using the dust boot on your connector. But I would not recommend leaving it out there for long, just for a few quick trips if you got to move some trailers and stuff around. We'll begin our installation here at the back of the vehicle with the lift gate open. Our floor panels here need to be removed. Simply lift up on those and you can set these to the side. There are multiple panels in there that we're going to be taking out, so let's get them all out of our way, because these side panels will have to come loose so we can access the connectors behind it. In order to pull these inward to get behind them, all this stuff has to get out of the way. So you can pull these up. That'll make it easy to get this thing out of here. It does should push in just a little bit. And then we can pull this out. This floor covering here also comes out. And now that we've got that out of the way, our wiring is going to have to route to both sides. So we're going to remove this panel here. Looks like there are some push pin fasteners located here on the inside. We've got one here and in the same location on the opposite side. So we're going to grab our trim panel tool to pop those out of there. The fasteners have a little groove in them. You can stick your trim panel tool down in the little groove and then pop the center of it out. If you're having a hard time with the trim panel tool, a flat bladed screwdriver also works really well. The notch here is kind of small, so if you got a bigger blade on your trim panel tool here, like how wide that is, it can be a little bit difficult to get that in there. But we got that popped out. We'll pop this one out the same way. Right here in the center, we need to pop this up here because this is underneath this loop. So we're gonna just grab our trim tool and get underneath of it there. Just pop it up like that. And then we can continue popping this up, working our way down. And then we'll set this aside. On our side panels now, to get these pulled out, we've got some fasteners we need to remove. Our anchor points here we'll need to take out, so you can take your trim panel tool in there and pry out the cover here. After you pry it out a little bit, it's kind of a weird cover. You gotta like pull it out and also up on this at the kind of the same time in order to get that open. That'll reveal our fastener inside. We're going to remove that with a 10mm socket. And this whole piece will come out once you remove the fastener. So just pull all that out of there. We can set that aside. We do have some more fasteners on this side. They run along the bottom towards the front. So if we just kind of follow it here, you're going to see this cover. We're going to pop that cover out. There's another cover even further forward. We're going to remove that one as well. You can use a flat bladed screwdriver. There we go. Just like that to get that popped out. We'll pop out the other one here, same way. And then the second cap that we're popping out here, if we go straight up from it, you're going to see another one of those anchors that we had just removed. We're going to remove this one here as well. So now that we've got all these fasteners removed here, we can start taking this panel out. I like to pull out on the weather stripping here a bit just because I can get my fingers behind it a little easier. And we're also going to grab our trim panel tool because it does make popping this panel out a little bit easier without damaging any of the clips if you've got a trim panel tool, because we're going to pull out on it and we're actually looking kind of behind it for any clips. Looks like our first clip is going to be located right here. So we're going to get our trim panel tool back behind it there to assist popping that clip out, move up to the next one that we see here. And we're just going to keep doing this until we get it up to there. These pieces will separate from one another, so we really only need to go up that high. And then it just comes out like that. We can now access our taillight connections inside here. So we can press in on the release tab and pop that apart, or what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull this whole connector off. It's on the wall here, just held in by a little fastener. And you can even take your trim panel tool back behind it to assist in popping it off of there. It'll just make it easier to work with and easier for you guys at home to see here if we pop this off here. So we're just going to get behind it, give it a little bit of a twist here. There we go, there's our connector. It's got a really small release tab right there, and then we can separate the two. We'll now grab our harness that comes in our kit so we can plug it in. We are also going to prepare the driver's side the exact same way. So all these panels, everything we removed on this side, we're going to remove on that side and get this out so we can have the connector over there available to us as well. So now that we've got access to our panels on both sides, we can grab our harness here that comes in our kit. We're going to start on the driver's side here. This is our connector end that plugs into the factory connectors that we disconnected. The driver's side is going to be the brown, red, and yellow connectors. The green wire here that you see with the white wires on it's going to go towards the passenger side. That's why we get so much extra of that wire there. So we're just going to pull this out. Our wire needs to kind of go underneath of it there. Grab that factory connector that we had disconnected and plug our harness right into it. Just like that. Next, we got a few connections that we need to make still on this side. So we're going to bring the module over here because we're going to be mounting it behind this panel. On the module, you see here the wires we have left to connect. We've got a white, that's our ground. We've got a black, that'll be our power that we're going to route. And again, the green goes to there. So let's get the ground hooked up. Or actually, we'll probably hook up the power real fast here just because it'll be a little bit easier while we've got it kind of here we can access it, because we're going to be routing this power wire up through that grommet and towards the front. And if we got our module hidden behind here, it makes it a little harder to access to make these connections. So take the big bundle of black wire that comes in your kit, strip it back. You may also want to strip more back on this one. This one looks like it's got plenty stripped, but sometimes they only strip a little tiny bit for you. It's going to always be pre-stripped. It's just not always to my liking. We can now crimp a butt connector on it that comes in our kit to attach these two together. If you need a set of crimpers, you can get some here at etrailer. I'm using a multi-tool from Performance Tools here. This has strippers, crimpers, all built into one. It's not as nice to use as individual components that do each feature, but it does everything. So if you don't do a lot of wiring, this is a nice tool to give you everything that you need for an occasional product. But here in the shop, if you're doing this all the time, I would recommend full-on tools that are specific to their purpose. Other end of our black wire here just slides in. And we'll crimp this down. There we go. We got that routed, or that wire connected. We're going to be routing it that direction, but getting it connected first is just easier before we stick all these parts back here. Now we're going to hook up the ground. The ground wire here has a ring terminal pre-installed on it, and there's actually a factory ground located right here. So we can remove the bolt for this factory ground and use it to attach our ground to it. All right, so now we've got all the connections that we need to make here on this side. Let's go ahead and get our green wire routed to the other side and connected to the factory connector over there. This is going to stay hidden underneath our panel here. I'm going to run it kind of along the inside edge. We don't want to run it along the top here because it's risky when you go to install the panel. You could potentially damage the wire on one of the clip locations. So if you would across the back here, it's a lot safer, less chance you're going to damage it. And now I'm going to route my black wire to the front of the vehicle. We're going to route it down the edge here, through this grommet, and then up to the front. I'm going to go ahead and route the wire now, and then I'll show you the path I took to get it to the front. Before I route that wire, though, we are going to mount our module here, and we're going to end up mounting it behind our paneling here. So I'm just going to clean up an area here, put a little bit of alcohol in a rag. I'm just cleaning up the area that I plan on sticking it to, and I'm just kind of feeling around to see what's available here when we put this together. And it looks like we're going to have plenty of clearance between our panel right here. So we're going to put it in this area, just wiping this down so that way when we secure it with the double-sided adhesive that comes in your kit, you get a little sticky pad here. We're going to peel off one piece of the backing, grab our module here, stick our backing to the module. And then we'll peel off our backing and then affix that to the location that we had cleaned. So we're just going to make sure we go up high enough to clear for where this hole is right here for our knockout. Because when we push this panel back in, when we go to reinstall this, so we roughly the same area, just up a little bit to make sure you clear for this. We're going to be feeding this wire down through this grommet here. So we're going to take a screwdriver, make sure we go below the wire here so we don't damage the wire, and then just poke it right down through the grommet. We're just making a hole right there just to give us a place to feed our wire through. If you need to, you can use a little bit of assistance from your screwdriver to help you on getting this fed through there. You can kind of stick it through the hole and use it to spread it open a little bit. There we go, got it started. We'll then head down below and pull it the rest of the way and continue our path towards the front. So this is where our wire comes out right here. We're at the rear suspension here. This is the lower control arm. This is the axle going to the driver's side rear tire right here. Kind of give you a perspective of where we're at. The grommet's right above the subframe right here, so you're gonna have to reach around it and grab the wire, and then you can pull it down. And then from there, we can route it towards the front of the vehicle. We want to make sure we avoid anything excessively hot like our exhaust and any moving components like our suspension. So when we came down and we went around, we make sure to go on this side of this strap here to keep it away from our suspension here. And then we zip tied it to the parking brake cable here. You can trim off any excess you got there. And then we just stay along the side of the fuel tank heading towards the front. We hit the undershield here and just stay above it. You can just push it straight above it. And when it comes out the other side, this portion here has some holes in it. We just put it in the hole, fed it down the hole all the way until we got down to the other side. and pulled it out the hole here. That'll protect our wire all the way down. Once we got up here, we need to pull it into our engine compartment there. The easiest way to do this, rather than taking your wire here and trying to push it up from the bottom, get yourself a fish wire to pull it through. We're using a piece of airline tubing here that we routed from the top and pushed it down. But if you're doing this at home, you probably got a metal coat hanger laying around, and those work really well. You can straighten that out, and up top you can push it down, and then we just took some electrical tape here and taped it to it so we can just pull this fish wire to get our wire up there, because it's a lot more rigid, so it's easy to push this in the path that we need. Our wire likes to bunch up a lot when we're routing it, so trying to get through these tight areas is really difficult with just the wire. This channel here is pretty smooth on the inside, so I was able to push the wire straight through, but you can also use this fish wire trick to get it through here if you're having a difficult time. So we're now here at the front. I pulled my fish wire until it came up, and then I just went ahead and zip tied it here to make sure that it couldn't fall down. Another thing that I did too before zip tying it here, after I pulled it up, I got back down on my knees there and I looked underneath to make sure that it did pull all the way up, because again, it's not uncommon for this wire to do one of those numbers, and then you're pulling it and it's a loop caught on something, so you want to make sure you do have it all the way pulled up so it can't drop back down. Then you can zip tie it in place to secure it to keep it from dropping down. And now we're going to hook up our battery harness right here. It's just a little fuse harness that's going to go in between our battery and our power wire that we had run. So there's our battery positive there. So we got a little corrosion on it. We've got some corrosion cleaning tools and solutions here at eTrailer if you want to address that while you're here. We're going to take our fuse harness here, strip back each end. Looks like it is kind of pre-stripped, but there's not much strip there. You might want to strip a little more off. On one side of our fuse harness, we're going to be putting a ring terminal. And then here on the other side, we're going to be placing a butt connector. I do not recommend using the one that comes in your kit though. I recommend upgrading to a heat shrink butt connector, since this is going to be under the hood here where it's exposed to the elements. Heat shrink butt connectors we can shrink down with a little bit of heat from a source like a heat gun. And that'll seal up the ends here to keep out moisture, ensuring a long-lasting connection. So now we've got this prepared, I like to hook it up to the battery. We're going to use a 12mm socket to remove the nut here. Slide our ring terminal in place. And if you put it off in the right direction like this, you might even be able to close your cover back on it there. So now we can trim off the excess length that we've got here. I always like to leave some excess though, so we're going to leave enough to be able to tuck our fuse harness down by the battery here just to kind of hide it. So I'm thinking something like this ought to be pretty. So we'll take and trim off the excess from there. We can then strip back the wire that we had run. This is just going to go into the other side of the heat shrink butt connector that we had routed. And we can go ahead and shrink this down and insert our fuse and make sure everything's working properly. And then we can test it out. I always like to test it before I reinstall all the panels we'd removed at the back there. If you got an issue, then you got to take it all back apart. So it's easier to verify it works properly and then reinstall your panels. We've gone ahead and plugged in the tester here to make sure it's going to work. You can plug it into your trailer, but I highly recommend doing it this way, because if you have any faults on your trailer, you might think that there's something wrong with the wiring you just installed, when actually it's an issue with the trailer. A tester like this will help us verify that this vehicle here is working properly, so if we do plug into our trailer and have an issue, we know it's on the trailer side. So now we want to make sure we have our left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps, and brake lamps. With all of our signals working properly, we can clean up any of the wiring we've got with the zip ties included in the kit and reinstall our panels in reverse order of how we removed them. Now that we've got all of our panels reinstalled here, you can put the dust boot on that comes in your kit. It just slides over it. And then you can store it in your compartment down here. There's a nice little slot there that you can pull it out of, or you could lift this up to access it, whichever one works better for you. When you're ready to use it, it drapes out over the back and it'll pinch between our weather stripping, won't damage it, everything will work just fine. And that completes our installation of Curt's 4-pole flat trailer connector vehicle wiring harness on our 2016 Nissan Rogue.